5 years had passed since that day at dock. 7 when Captain Marcus Cole had stopped to notice 3 beggars huddled near the waist. Reclamation shoots 5 years since he had looked into a child's impossible blue eyes and felt the universe shift. Beneath his feet now he stood on the surface of a world that had no name yet. A green and beautiful planet orbiting a yellow star with 2 small moons hanging in the violet sky. The Valkyrie had chosen it together from a list of candidates that human scientists had prepared. They had wanted a world with lower gravity because their bodies were built for lightness. A world with oceans because water meant life. A world far enough from council space that they could build without interference. This world had all of those things and something more. Had a sun that reminded the oldest Valkyrie of their lost homeworld. A warm golden light that felt like coming home after a long and terrible journey. Marcus watched as construction vehicles rolled across the plains. Human engineers working alongside Valkyrie architects to raise the first permanent buildings of the new colony. The structures were a blend of both cultures. Human practicality mixed with Valkyrie elegance. And something about that combination made Marcus smile. The Galactic Council had tried to block the colonization, of course. They had invoked treaties and regulations and ancient laws that nobody had thought about in centuries, but the human legal team had found something remarkable buried deep in the original council charter. A clause written by the Valkyrie themselves back when they were a founding member of that august body. The clause read, "Any species may offer sanctuary and settlement rights to displaced peoples regardless of council objection." The Valkyrie had written the law that saved them. The irony of it was so perfect that even the council ambassadors had gone quiet when the human lawyers presented their case. Now here they were, building a new world together. Marcus heard footsteps behind him and turned to find Thessaly approaching. She looked different now, healthier and stronger, with new clothes that actually fit her properly and a light in her eyes that had not been there when he first met her. Behind her came Kira. No longer the frightened child from the space station, but a bright young girl who smiled easily and laughed often. "Captain Cole," Thessaly said, and there was warmth in her voice that had not been there 5 years ago. "I have been looking for you." "Just Marcus," he corrected as he always did. "I have not been a captain for 3 years now." "You will always be captain to me," Thessaly replied. "You were the captain who changed everything. You were the one who stopped and saw us when everyone else walked past." Kira ran up and hugged Marcus around the waist, a gesture of affection that had become common between them over the years. "Did you see the new school?" she asked excitedly. "They finished the roof today, and tomorrow they are going to start installing the computers." "Real computers, Marcus. I'm going to learn how to program." "That is wonderful," Marcus told her, ruffling the hair between her pointed ears. "You are going to be the smartest programmer on the whole planet." "I am going to be the smartest programmer in the whole galaxy," Kira corrected with the absolute confidence that only children possessed. Thessaly smiled at her granddaughter and then turned to look at the construction site with an expression that was difficult to read. "Sometimes I still cannot believe this is real," she admitted. "I keep expecting to wake up back on that station, hungry and afraid and wondering if anyone would ever help us." "It is real," Marcus assured her. "You are home now. You are safe. Because of you. Because of all of us," Marcus corrected. "Because 60 years ago some humans decided to do the right thing even when it was dangerous and foolish. Because your people never forgot that kindness. Because one day a captain stopped to talk to some beggars at a dock. He shook his head. I was just one link in a very long chain. The real heroes are the ones who came before us and the ones who will come after." Thessaly was quiet for a moment, watching the sun sink toward the horizon and paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Then, she reached into her coat and pulled out something small and precious. An object that Marcus recognized immediately. It was a pendant, old and worn smooth by generations of hands. And it bore an image that had become sacred to the Valkyrie people. The face of Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up at him. Preserved in metal and memory, my grandmother's grandmother was saved by her, Thessaly said softly. This pendant has been passed down through my family for 60 years. My mother carried it until she died. I have carried it my entire life. She pressed it into Marcus's hands and closed his fingers around it. Now I give it to you. Marcus tried to protest. Thessaly, I cannot accept this. This is your family treasure. This is your history, and you are part of that history now. Thessaly replied firmly. You are the one who answered our call. You are the one who proved that the stories we told our children were true, that humans really are different, that humans really do care. She smiled, and there were tears in her black eyes, but they were happy tears. Take it so that your descendants will remember what humans did. Take it so they will know what you did, so they will carry this story forward the way we carried it. Marcus looked down at the pendant, at the face of a woman who had died before he was born on a world he had never visited, and he understood that this was not just about him. This was about being part of something bigger than himself. A chain of kindness that stretched back 60 years and would stretch forward into a future he could not imagine. I will take care of it, he promised. I will make sure the story is never forgotten. Kira tugged on his sleeve. Marcus, when I am older, can I see Earth? Of course you can, he told her. Earth is your home too now. You can visit whenever you want. And can I meet the other Vasquez family? The ones who were at the spaceport when we landed. They ask about you every month, Marcus laughed. They would love to see you again. Kira grinned with pure joy and ran off toward the construction site, probably to tell her friends about her future travel plans. Thessaly watched her go with the soft expression of a grandmother who had seen too much suffering and was finally able to hope again. We asked for leftovers, she said quietly, almost to herself. We only asked for scraps, for the food you would throw away, and you gave us this instead. She gestured at the planes spread out before them, at the buildings rising from the ground, at the ships still arriving in orbit carrying more Valkyrie refugees every day. You gave us a home. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders. A gesture that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago, but now felt as natural as breathing. That is what family does, he said. Simply above them, the first stars of evening began to appear. Tiny points of light in a darkening sky. On the horizon, the new city was coming alive. Lights flickering on in windows and streets. Valkyrie and human voices mixing together in the cool evening air. Somewhere in that city, children were playing. Children with black eyes and children with blue eyes, running and laughing without any memory of the suffering that had come. Before they would grow up knowing that they belonged here, they would grow up knowing that they were loved, and they would carry the story forward to their own children. The story of how humanity opened its arms to strangers and called them family. Marcus looked up at the stars and thought about all the species out there in the darkness. The ones who had abandoned the Valkyrie, and the ones who had watched without caring, and the ones who had tried to stop humanity from helping. They had expected humans to be like them, to make decisions based on politics and profit and cold calculation. They had underestimated the most human quality of all, the ability to see someone suffering and simply decide to care. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not weapons or technology or power, just kindness, just compassion, just the simple, radical act of treating strangers like family. And as the stars wheeled overhead and the new city glowed on the horizon, Marcus Cole made a silent promise to himself and to the woman whose face he carried in his pocket. He would make sure that humanity never forgot who they or he would make sure that the next time someone asked for leftovers, there would always be a human ready to give them a home instead. That was the legacy of Elena Vasquez. That was the legacy of the foolish ones, and now it was his legacy too, forever. The message spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within 1 week of Earth's broadcast, the first Valkyrie refugee ships began arriving at human stations. They came from everywhere. From forgotten colonies on the edge of known space. From cramped apartments on alien worlds where they had lived as second-class citizens. From cargo holds and service corridors and all the hidden places where unwanted people survive. They came in ships that should not have been able to fly. Held together by hope and prayers and desperate engineering, they came in escape pods designed for 3 people, packed with 7. They came carrying nothing but the clothes on their backs and the names of human heroes on their tongues, and at every human station they found the same thing waiting for them: open arms, hot food, and the words that had become a rallying cry across all of human space: welcome home. The Galactic Council was not pleased. Ambassador Zeleth of the Torani hegemony arrived at the United Earth Council headquarters in Geneva with a formal protest and a face full of barely contained fury. The Torani were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, their civilization stretching back tens of thousands of years before humans had even developed language. They had scales that shifted color with their emotions. And right now, Zeleth's scales were rippling through shades of red and orange that indicated extreme agitation. Director General Amara Okonkwo received him in her office. A room designed to be impressive without being intimidating. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray hair cut close to her scalp. And she had been leading Earth's diplomatic efforts for nearly a decade. She did not stand when Zeleth entered. Ambassador, she said calmly, what can I do for you today? Zeleth slapped a datapad down on her desk with more force than necessary. You can explain this, he demanded. You can explain why humanity has suddenly decided to destabilize the entire galactic order by absorbing the Valkyrie population. Okonkwo glanced at the datapad without picking it up. We are not absorbing anyone, Ambassador. We are offering sanctuary to refugees. Do not play word games with me, Zeleth snapped, his scales flashing brighter. The Valkyrie are a scattered people. They have no homeworld, no functioning government, no legal status under council law. By taking them in, you are claiming their population and all the rights that come with it. What rights would those be exactly? Historical territorial claims, Zeleth said. The Valkyrie Confederation once controlled over 40 star systems. Systems that have been redistributed to other species over the past 6 decades. If the Valkyrie become part of humanity, then humanity inherits those claims. Okonkwo leaned back in her chair and studied the ambassador with cool dark eyes. So your concern is not humanitarian, she said. Your concern is political. You are worried that humanity might use the Valkyrie to expand our territory. I am worried about stability, Zeleth insisted. The Council spent 60 years managing the aftermath of the Valkyrie collapse. We cannot have a young species like humanity coming in and disrupting everything for emotional reasons. Emotional reasons, Okonkwo repeated. And something in her voice made Zeleth's scales shift to a slightly more cautious shade of yellow. Yes, emotional reasons. This whole situation began because one of your captains felt sorry for some beggars. That is not how interstellar politics should work. The Director General was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city of Geneva spread below her. Ambassador Zeleth, she said without turning around. Do you know what the humans who went to Valkyrie space during the plague called themselves? I do not see how that is relevant. They called themselves the foolish ones. Okonkwo continued as if he had not spoken. They knew the council thought they were stupid, throwing away resources and lives for aliens who would forget them in a generation. They went anyway. She turned to face him. 60 years. Ambassador, the Valkyrie remembered us for 60 years. They named their children after our heroes. They changed their very DNA so they would never forget what we did for them. Her voice hardened into something cold and sharp. So let me be very clear about something. We do not care about territorial claims. We do not care about political influence. We do not care about destabilizing your precious galactic order. She stepped closer to Zelith, and the ambassador actually took a step back. What we care about is the people who loved us have been suffering for 60 years while the council did nothing. They have been wandering and starving and dying alone, and we did not know. Now we know. And if you think we are going to turn our backs on them because it might inconvenience the species who abandoned them in the first place, you are wrong. Zealous scales had gone pale, a sign of deep discomfort. The council will not accept this, he said. But his voice had lost its earlier confidence. The council can go to hell. Okonkwo replied, the words hung in the air between them. Heavy and final. You are making a mistake, Zealous said at last. Humanity is still young. You do not understand how the galaxy works. You can't afford to make enemies of the council. Okonkwo smiled, and there was no warmth in it at all. Ambassador, let me tell you something about humans. We have a saying that goes like this: stand for something or fall for anything. She walked back to her desk and sat down, clearly dismissing him. The Valkyries stood by us when we were nothing. When we were newcomers that nobody respected, they kept our memory alive when they had every reason to forget and move on. Now it is our turn to stand by them. She picked up a pen and began signing documents, not even looking at him anymore. You can tell the council that humanity's position is non-negotiable. The Valkyrie are welcome here. They are family. And we protect our family. Zella stood there for a moment, his scales cycling through colors that Marcus would not have been able to read even if he had been there to see them. Then he turned and walked out without another word. The door closed behind him, and Okonkwo let out a long breath. Her assistant poked his head in. Director General, how did it go? About as expected, she replied. They are scared. When powerful people are scared, they make threats. We just have to be ready for whatever comes next. And what do you think will come next? Okonkwo thought about the millions of Valkyrie still scattered across the galaxy. Thought about the ships full of refugees making their way toward human space. Thought about little girls with blue eyes and human names. I think, she said slowly, that we are about to find out what humanity is really made of. I think we are about to show the galaxy who we really are. She smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. The warmth of a fire being kindled against the cold. And I think they are going to be surprised. Across human space, the message continued to spread. Come home, come home, come home. And they came by the thousands at first, then by the tens of thousands, then by the hundreds of thousands. Valari with black eyes and Valkyrie with blue eyes. Elders who remembered the plague and children who had only heard stories about it. Families reunited after decades apart, and strangers who became family because they shared the same history. They came to humanity not as conquerors or invaders, but as people looking for a place to belong, and humanity opened its arms and said what it had said from the very beginning. Welcome home. The Galactic Council watched and worried and made their plans, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated what happens when humans decide to care about something, and humans had decided to care about the Valkyrie. That was going to change everything. The journey to Earth took 11 days, and Marcus spent most of that time recording messages. He sat in his cabin with his camera pointed at his face, and he told the story that Thessaly had told him. The story of the Harrow Plague and the human doctors who defied the Galactic Council to save a dying civilization, he recorded. Thessaly speaking in her careful broken common, her black eyes filled with memories of loss and Gratitude, he recorded Kira showing off her blue eyes and saying her human name with pride, and then he did something that his first officer called either brilliant or insane. He uploaded everything to the human network and let it spread the message. Traveled faster than any ship could move, bouncing from relay station to relay station, until it reached every corner of human space. Within 3 days, it had been viewed over 2 billion times. Within 5 days, it was the only thing anyone was talking about. Marcus received thousands of messages from people he had never met, humans from Earth and Mars and the colony worlds who had watched his recordings and wept. They sent him pictures of their grandparents who had volunteered during the plague years. They sent him old letters and medical reports and photographs of doctors who had never come home. They told him stories that had been passed down through their families, stories of bravery and sacrifice that nobody outside their bloodlines had ever heard. And most importantly, they asked him one question over and over again: how can we help? By the time the stellar wind entered Earth's solar system, Marcus had received word that something unprecedented was happening. Ships were gathering at the edge of Earth space. Private vessels and merchant freighters and luxury yachts, hundreds of them waiting in a formation that no one had organized. When the stellar wind finally dropped out of faster than light travel, Marcus looked out his bridge window and felt his breath catch in his throat. There were over 1,400 ships waiting for them. Some of them were old military cruisers that had been dragged out of retirement, their hulls still bearing the scars of battles fought before Marcus was born. Their crews had seen his message and had powered up engines that had been cold for decades just so they could be here for this moment. Captain Cole, a voice crackled over the communication system. This is the Earth Defense Coordination Center. We have a flight path cleared for you straight to Snow Polo Spaceport. You have priority landing clearance. And Captain, welcome home. Marcus did not trust his voice to respond, so he just acknowledged the message with a simple signal. He went down to the guest quarters where Thessaly and Kira were waiting. The grandmother was standing at the small window, staring at the blue and green marble of Earth growing larger in the distance. That is your world? She asked without turning around. That is our world, Marcus corrected. Yours too now. Thessaly finally looked at him, and there were tears running down her face again. I never thought I would see it, she whispered. I have dreamed of this world my whole life. My grandmother told me stories about the humans who came from there, and now I am here. I am actually here. Kira pressed her small face against the window, her blue eyes wide with wonder. It is so big, she said, and so blue. Why is it so blue? Water, Marcus told her. Most of our planet is covered in water, and the sky is blue because of the way light moves through our atmosphere. Blue like my eyes, Kira said with a smile. Yes, Marcus agreed, feeling his heart swell with an emotion he could not name. Blue like your eyes. The descent through Earth's atmosphere was smooth, and the landing was perfect. Marcus barely had time to power down the engines before he heard the crowd. He had seen the reports during their approach. He had known that people were gathering at the spaceport, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of it. 30,000 humans stood waiting outside the stellar wind. They held signs and banners with messages of welcome written in dozens of languages. They waved and cheered, and some of them were crying openly. And at the front of the crowd, held back by a thin line of security personnel, stood a group of people wearing shirts that read Vasquez family. Marcus walked down the landing ramp with Thessaly on one side and Kira on the other. The crowd went completely silent. Everyone was staring at the little Valkyrie girl with the impossible blue eyes. Then a woman broke through the security line. An older human with dark hair streaked with gray and kind eyes that looked exactly like the photos Marcus had seen of Elena Vasquez, my great-grandmother. the woman said, her voice shaking with emotion. My great-grandmother was Elena Vasquez. She died on your world saving your people. Thessaly let go of Marcus's hand and stepped forward on trembling legs. I know, she said. My grandmother was one of the people she saved. I have carried her memory my entire life. I have told her story to everyone who would listen. The two women stood facing each other, separated by species and history and 60 years of distance. Then Elena's great-granddaughter opened her arms and Thessaly fell into them. The crowd erupted into cheers so loud that Marcus felt it in his chest. People were crying and laughing and holding each other. Complete strangers united by a story of kindness that had survived for generations. Kira tugged on Marcus's sleeve, and he knelt down to hear her. Why are they so happy? She asked, genuinely confused. We only asked for leftovers. Marcus smiled and picked her up so she could see over the crowd. Because to them you are not beggars, he explained. To them you are family they did not know they had. You are proof that what their grandparents did mattered. You are the answer to a prayer they did not know they were praying. Kira thought about this for a moment. That is a lot of feelings for blue eyes and a human name, she said. Marcus laughed out loud. A real genuine laugh that surprised him. Yes, it is, he agreed. But that is what it means to be human. We feel a lot about small things, especially when those small things represent big things. The crowd surged around them, gentle hands reaching out to touch Thessaly and Kira like they were precious treasures that had finally been returned to their rightful owners. Marcus found himself pushed toward a podium that someone had set up. Cameras and microphones pointed at him from every direction. A reporter shouted a question over the noise. Captain Cole, what happens now? Before Marcus could answer, his communicator beeped with an N. Incoming message from the United Earth Council. He read it and felt his heart stop, then start again, then start racing. He held up his hand, and the crowd fell silent once more. I just received a message from the council, he announced. They have one question for our new friends. He looked at Thessaly, who was watching him with those black eyes full of hope and fear. They want to know how many more Valkyrie are out there. How many more of your people need help? Thessaly's voice was steady when she answered. Millions, she said. Millions of us scattered across 100 systems. We have been wandering and waiting for 60 years. Marcus read the response from Earth's government out loud, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. Then come home. 2 words, just 2 words, but they changed everything. The crowd exploded into the loudest cheer yet. A roar of joy and welcome and fierce protective love. Thessaly collapsed to her knees and wept into her hands. Kira ran to her grandmother and held her tight, and Captain Marcus Cole stood at the center of it all, watching a species reunite with the family they had never forgotten. This was humanity at its best. This was what it meant to be human, not conquest or domination or power, just kindness, just remembering, just opening your arms and saying, come home and somewhere among the stars. Marcus was sure that the spirit of Elena Vasquez was smiling. The guest quarters on the stellar wind were not fancy, but they were clean and warm and safe. Marcus watched from the doorway as Thessaly and Kira and the other adult Valkyrie sat at the small table, staring at the food in front of them like they had never seen anything so wonderful. His cook had prepared a simple meal of rice and vegetables and protein strips. Nothing special by human standards. But the way the 3 Valkyrie looked at it made Marcus feel something twist in his chest. Kira reached for the food first, her small hands trembling with hunger. Thessaly stopped her gently and spoke in their native language, something soft and musical that Marcus could not understand. Then, all 3 of them bowed their heads and clasped their hands together. They were praying. Marcus realized, giving thanks before they ate. When they finally began to eat, it was slow and careful, like they were afraid the food might disappear if they moved too fast. Marcus left them alone for an hour, giving them time to fill their stomachs and catch their breath. When he returned, he found them sitting together on a single bed. Kira curled up between the two adults with her eyes half closed. "She is falling asleep," Thessaly said quietly. "She has not slept well in many weeks. She has been so afraid." "Let her sleep," Marcus said. "We have time." He pulled up a chair and sat down across from them, keeping his voice low so he would not disturb the child. "I need you to tell me the truth," he said. "I need to know how a Valkyrie child came to have human eyes and a human name. I am not going to report you to anyone. I promise you that. But I need to understand." Thessaly looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of deception. Whatever she found there seemed to satisfy her, because she finally nodded. "It is a long story," she said. "I have time," Marcus replied, and so Thessaly began to tell him the story of the Harrow Plague 60 years ago. The Valkyrie Confederation was one of the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. They had been among the founders of the Galactic Council. Their scientists had discovered principles of physics that other species still did not understand, and their ships had traveled farther than anyone else had ever gone. Then the plague came. Nobody knew where it started or how it spread so quickly. But within months, it had reached every major Valkyrie world. The Harrow Plague was brutal and efficient, attacking the nervous system until the victim could no longer move or breathe or think. Millions died in the first year alone. The Valkyrie begged the Galactic Council for help, for medical supplies and research assistance and evacuation ships. The Council voted to quarantine them instead. "They sealed our borders," Thessaly said, her voice flat and empty. "They said the plague was too dangerous to risk spreading. They said they would wait until it burned itself out, and then they would help the survivors. They left us to die." Marcus felt sick because he had learned about this in school, but hearing it from someone who had lived through it was completely different. "What happened then?" he asked. "The humans came," Thessaly said, and something changed in her voice. Something soft and warm like sunlight after a long storm. Humanity had only been part of the Council for 12 years at that time. You were newcomers, outsiders. The other species did not respect you or take you seriously. When the Council voted to seal our borders, the human representative was the only one who voted against it. "I did not know that," Marcus admitted. "Most humans do not," Thessaly replied. "Your history books do not talk about it much, but we remember. We have never forgotten." She told him about the human ships that came despite the quarantine. Medical vessels and relief convoys, loaded with supplies and staffed by volunteers who knew they might never go home again. They came knowing they could catch the plague themselves. They came knowing the Council might punish them for breaking the quarantine. They came. Anyway, there was a doctor, Thessaly said. Her name was Elena Vasquez. She worked on my homeworld. She saved my grandmother's life and thousands of others. She developed a treatment that helped turn the tide against the plague. What happened to her? Marcus asked, though something in Thessaly's face told him he already knew the answer. She died, Thessaly whispered. She caught the plague, and she kept working until she could not stand anymore. She gave everything she had, and then she gave her life. All for people who were not her own. All for strangers on a world that was not hers. The cabin was quiet, except for Kira's soft breathing. Marcus did not know what to say, because what could anyone say to something like that when the plague finally ended? Thessaly continued. When we survivors crawled out of the ruins of our civilization, we made a promise. We swore that we would never forget what the humans did for us. We named our children after the human heroes who saved us. She looked down at Kira with infinite tenderness. Kira was named after a human nurse who died protecting a Valkyrie hospital from looters. Elena is a common name among our people now, and Marcus, and Sarah, and David. Hundreds of human names that our children carry like treasures. And the eyes? Marcus asked gently. That came later, Thessaly admitted. Some of us wanted something more permanent, something that could not be forgotten or erased. The gene grafting was not complicated, just a small change to our children's DNA. Enough to give them human eyes as a visible reminder of what we owe. Her voice turned bitter. The council called it primitive sentiment. They said we were contaminating our genome with alien DNA. They cut off our reconstruction aid and declared the gene grafting illegal. 60 years later, we are still paying for the crime of remembering. Marcus sat back in his chair and tried to process everything he had just heard. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he had always assumed that humanity's place in the galaxy was one of struggle and competition, fighting for respect among species who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years before humans even existed. He had never imagined that there were people out there who loved humanity, people who named their children after human heroes, people who changed their very DNA so they would never forget human kindness. How many of you are there? He asked. Millions, Thessaly replied. Scattered across 100 systems, stateless and unwanted. The council will not help us rebuild, and most species will not take us in. We have been wandering for 60 years, looking for a place to belong. She reached out and took his hand, her forefingers cool and delicate against his skin. And now you understand why we came looking for humans, she said. You understand why we believed that if anyone would help us, it would be you. Marcus looked at their joined hands and thought about Dr. Elena Vasquez dying on a world that was not hers. He thought about Kira carrying a human name like a shield against the darkness. He thought about what it meant to be human, really human, not just in body but in spirit. My ship was supposed to go to Meridian Station, he said slowly. Please, Thessaly said. Misunderstanding. You do not have to change your plans for us. We only ask for food. If you can just drop us at the next station, we will find our way. No, Marcus interrupted. I was supposed to go to Meridian Station, but I had decided to change course. He pulled out his communicator and keyed in the shipwide channel. This is Captain Cole to all hands, he announced. Change of plans. We are not going to Meridian Station anymore. Thessaly watched him with confusion and dawning hope. We are going to Earth, Marcus said, looking her straight in the eyes. We are going home. And you are coming with us. Thessaly began to cry. Not the silent tears of fear she had shed at the dock, but loud, broken sobs of relief that shook her whole body. Kira stirred at the sound and opened her impossible blue eyes. Grandmother? She asked sleepily. What is wrong? Thessaly pulled her close and held her tight. Nothing is wrong, little one, she whispered. Everything is finally right. We are going home. We are going to the home we have dreamed of for 60 years. Kira did not fully understand, but she smiled anyway. Trusting that her grandmother would explain later, Marcus watched them hold each other and felt something settle in his heart. A sense of purpose he had not known he was missing. He did not know what would happen when they reached Earth. He did not know if anyone would listen or care, but he knew that he had to try, because that was what it meant to be human. That was what Elena Vasquez would have done, and Marcus Cole was determined to be worthy of her legacy. Captain Marcus Cole had spent 15 years traveling between the stars, and in that time he had seen every kind of person the galaxy had to offer. He had shared drinks with smugglers who could talk their way out of anything. He had argued with merchants who would sell their own mothers for a profit. And he had watched diplomats smile while they lied through their perfect. Teethway Station Helios was the kind of place where all these people came together. A massive spinning structure at the crossroads of 6 major trade routes where ships from 100 different worlds docked every single day. Marcus liked it here, because nobody asked to. Many questions and everybody minded their own business. He was finishing his cargo inspection at Dock 7 when he first noticed them, 3 figures, huddled near the waste reclamation chutes. pressed against the cold metal wall like they were trying to disappear into it. Even from a distance, Marcus could tell they were Valkyrie, a species most humans only knew from old war documentaries and history lessons. The Valkyrie had gray-green skin that looked almost translucent under the harsh station lights, and their bodies were thin and delicate, built for a world with lower gravity than most. Once upon a time, the Valkyrie Confederation had been one of the founding members of the Galactic Council, a civilization so advanced that they had been mapping distant galaxies while humans were still figuring out how to make fire. That was before the Harrow Plague swept through their system 60 years ago. That was before their empire crumbled into dust and their people scattered across the stars like leaves in a storm. Now they were this. Refugees begging for scraps at the edge of a busy dock. Marcus tried to focus on his cargo manifest, but he kept glancing back at them. The eldest of the three finally gathered enough courage to approach him. She was female, Marcus thought, though it was hard to tell with Valkyrie sometimes. She walked with her head bowed low and her four-fingered hands clasped together in front of her chest. It was the universal posture of someone asking for help, the body language of a person who expected to be turned away. "Human captain," she said in broken common, her voice soft and careful, like she was afraid of being too loud. "We ask only for leftovers, food your crew will not eat, scraps that would go to waste. We will work for it, we will clean, we will do anything you need." Marcus put down his datapad and really looked at her for the first time. Her clothes were patched and repatched so many times that he could not tell what color they had originally been. Her eyes were large and completely black, like pools of ink that reflected the station lights. Behind her, the other two Valkyrie waited with the same desperate patience, one adult and one juvenile who barely reached Marcus's hip. "Where is your ship?" Marcus asked. "Sold," the elder replied without any self-pity in her voice, just exhaustion that seemed to go bone deep. "We sold it for passage to the station. We heard that humans sometimes help. We heard that humans are different." Marcus frowned at that because he was not sure what she meant by different. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having only discovered faster than light travel about 70 years ago. Most of the older species looked down on humanity as aggressive primitives who had somehow stumbled into technology they did not deserve. The Galactic Council tolerated humans, but rarely respected them. Different how? Marcus asked. The elder hesitated, like she was not sure how to explain it. "Different in the heart?" She finally said. "Different in what you do when nobody is watching. Different in how you treat those who have nothing to offer." Marcus was not sure what to say to that, so he looked past her at the other two. Valkarith adult was watching him, with those same black eyes full of fear and hope mixed together. But the juvenile was looking down at the floor, and something about that bothered Marcus. "Hey," he called out gently. "Little one, it is okay. You can look up." The juvenile flinched like Marcus had shouted at her. The elder quickly stepped between them, her body tense with sudden fear. "Please, Captain," she said rapidly. "We only want food. We will leave right now. We did not mean to cause trouble. Please, just let us go, and we will never bother you again." But it was too late because the juvenile had already looked up and Marcus felt his entire world shift beneath his feet. The child had blue eyes, not the solid black orbs that all Valkyrie possessed, but blue eyes, pale and bright and unmistakably human blue, set in an alien face with green skin and delicate features. Marcus had seen many strange things in his years among the stars, but he had never seen anything like this. "How?" he whispered, the word escaping before he could stop it. The elder was trembling now, real terror flooding her features. "Please," she begged. "Please do not report us. The council says it is illegal. They say we contaminated ourselves, but we did not mean any harm. We only wanted to remember. Please, Captain." Marcus barely heard her because he could not look away from those blue eyes. They were so human and so alien at the same time. like looking at a reflection in a broken mirror. "What is your name?" he asked. The child softly, the juvenile, glanced at the elder, as if asking permission. When no answer came, she looked back at Marcus and spoke in a voice that was small but surprisingly clear. "Kira," she said. "My name is Kira." A human name spoken by an alien child with human eyes. Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest. Something he had not even known was closed. "Kira," he repeated, tasting the word. "That is a beautiful name." "Who gave it to you?" "My mother," Kira replied. "She said it was the name of a hero. She said I should always be proud of it." The elder was crying now, silent tears running down her gray-green face. "Her mother is dead," she whispered. "The plague took her. I am all Kira has left. I am her grandmother. My name is Thessaly. Please, Captain, I am begging you. We just want to survive. We just want to eat. We have nothing left but each other." Marcus looked at this broken little family, at the grandmother who had sold everything for a chance at kindness, at the child with human eyes who carried a human name like a precious treasure. He thought about all the species he had met who looked down on humanity, all the council members who called humans primitive and dangerous, and then he thought about what it meant that these desperate people had traveled across the stars because they had heard that humans were different. He made his decision in that moment. And it was not a hard decision at all. "My ship is the Stellarwind," he said, pointing down the dock. "Bay 14. Go there now and tell my crew that Captain Cole sent you. Tell him to give you the guest quarters and to prepare a hot meal." Thessaly stared at him like she could not understand his words. "Captain, we cannot pay. We have nothing." "I did not ask for payment," Marcus replied. "I asked you to go get something to eat." He knelt down so he was at eye level with Kira, and those impossible blue eyes watched him with a mixture of fear and wonder. "You have a beautiful name," he told her, "and I think you have a story to tell me. But first, you need food and rest. Can you do that for me?" Kira nodded slowly. Then she did something that Marcus would remember for the rest of his life. She reached out with her small four-fingered hand and touched his cheek, her skin cool and soft against his. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing us." And Marcus understood exactly what she meant in a galaxy full of people who looked right through them. He had stopped and actually seen them. It was such a small thing. And yet it meant everything. He watched as Thessaly took Kira's hand and led her toward Bay 14, the other adult Valkyrie following close behind, and as he watched them go, Marcus knew that his simple cargo run had just become something much bigger. Those blue eyes had changed everything. He just did not know how much yet.